Go ahead and record right there. Click the record button and then pause.
No, sorry.
All right, we will go ahead and call to order the Olivos Community Services District regular meeting of April 8th, 2026 at 6:02 p.m.
President Kennedy.
Here.
Right. Vice President Nelson.
Here.
Director Fairround.
Here.
Director Parks. Here. Director Palmer.
Here. Get everybody to stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This evening, next item on the agenda is public comment. Anybody who'd like to address the board about something not on the agenda, this is a great opportunity. So, word.
Good evening, and thank you, board, for the opportunity to speak. After attending the LOCSD technical committee meeting last week and listening to the questions by the board members, very good questions regarding the Wallace Group report, it appears a centralized sewer pipeline to Solvang may be more expensive than the board probably anticipated. The primary justification presented to this project has been mitigation of the elevated nitrate levels within our special problems area, attributed largely to density and condition of the local septic systems. If the fundamental premise is that septic tanks are the primary source of our groundwater contamination, it raises a significant question regarding the district's pursuit of regulatory remedies. Why has the district not made a formal request to the county to implement a mandate for strict maintenance and regular inspections of septic systems as a primary solution? If groundwater protection is the immediate goal, a robust mandated maintenance program, coupled with required upgrades to an advanced on-site treatment system for higher risk parcels, would address the source of contamination directly. Thus, the approach could potentially achieve the necessary environmental protections at a fraction of the cost of a full-scale septic to sewer conversion without the risk of urban sprawl or exporting your water to Solvang. I asked the board to clarify if a formal proposal to a septic regulation was ever presented to the county, or was there specific data that ruled out such a regulatory framework as a viable path forward? Thank you very much.
Anyone else who would like to address the board about anything not on the agenda?
So I live here locally, and due to the nature of my business, I get to see things that happen day to day to everybody. And what's going on right now is a person in Los Olivos, but not in our specific problem area, is having to get ground testing done because their septic failed during the last big rain. So now they have to test all the property. The county's going to decide where they put it. They don't look at how old this couple is. They don't look at their retirement age. They don't look at any of that. That's not their problem. Their problem is they're going to tell them what they got to do. They already said they're going to have to move it from where it is now. Who knows what that's going to cost? I feel so bad for these people. So to think that this is all an overreaction is ridiculous to me. The county's already mandating, and the sky's the limit. And I'm just tore up about these people because they don't have the money to do this. And the county doesn't. It's not in their protocol to care about what it costs. And everybody's going to have to go through this. It's happening more and more and more. So the old septic systems are not allowed anymore, period. And they're going to make people replace them. And they're going to tell them where they put them. And if that means 300 yards away from the home, if that's what you have, then that's what they're going to do. We don't have the choice anymore. So either we stay as a community and come up with a solution, or we're gonna be checked on one by one as our septics fail. It's gonna happen. And it's already happening.
Anyone?
Well, just to layer on top of that, as many of you know, I've been in real estate in this area and in the valley for, scary, maybe 45 years. And the recent sales we've had in Los Olivos have had a significant hurdle to overcome. A young couple was fortunate enough to buy a property within the community services district. It ended up, which was disclosed to them, but it ended up costing them over $110,000 in about 9 months to get a completed system so that they could complete the escrow and continue to buy the property. So whether it's you deal with the problem or it's dealt with piecemeal, piece by piece by piece, with the ones that can be dealt with, we're all dealing, and we're going to be dealing with the cost.
Anyone else? Do you have anyone online?
Catherine.
Okay, go ahead.
I have one quick.
We'll come back to Catherine.
I'm just kind of a follow-on to this too in a way, but from what I have read, I'm not sure I'm 100% correct, but the main town center is where the concentration of nitrate seems to be mostly centered on. And so kind of all goes back to the cost and everything. If you live a quarter mile outside of town and you have an operating septic system, to be forced into purchasing or connecting to sewer or having to do what Mike just explained with this couple that bought their place, it's like a huge hurdle for people to have to go through the cost. Like you said.
Thank you. Okay, Catherine and Roar online.
Hi, I happened to watch the recording of the LAFCO meeting this week, the local, I don't know what it is, Agent Formation Commission. And I know our CSD was scheduled to provide an update at that meeting. I didn't expect to see our CSD represented, but I saw Guy Savage and President Kennedy were there and gave a presentation. And one of the topics, I didn't see this on your agenda, so I'm hoping somebody's going to talk about the presentation and how that went in front of LAFCO. But one of the really interesting comments that came out of it was Commissioner Craig Geyer on LAFCO, and he's also on the board of the Goleta West Sanitary District, addressing the concerns raised by our CSD about running out of money in the next 3 months. And Commissioner Geyer asked whether our CSD board, has gone to the voters to change the assessment amount because it's been the same assessment amount. And his point was, not that anybody wants to pay more money, but was that would be a great litmus test. In fact, I wrote down what he said. He said, it kind of seems like that would be a good litmus test. If they turned you down, it wasn't that you dissolved the district, they did. If the voters would approve it, then you could move forward. So I would really encourage you to really consider going back to the voters, because if they approve it, hey, that's great. And you guys are on the same page and you're moving forward. If they tell you no, then it is what it is. And I hadn't heard, as the board struggles to think about how it can find funding and whether it can get TOT money from the county, but I hadn't heard the board ever consider this or discuss it among the 5 of you, whether that might be an option. And that really would give you an idea of where your community stands on this project as currently conceived. So I throw that out there because it was interesting food for thought, and thank you again for all your hard work.
Thank you. Do we have any questions online?
No.
We Oh, Maria, looks like has a hand up.
Oh, no, she does, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Anna Marie Gott.
Good evening, board members. So I just want to throw out something that, I don't believe anyone has really talked about at the Los Olivos Community Service District, which is a business improvement district. Where we see the problem, which is in the downtown, while there are a few residential homes there, 99 or 95% are going to be businesses. And I don't know if you know how a business improvement district works, but those individuals who own property in that district actually come up with a formula to figure out how much they are going to contribute on an annual basis toward a certain project. And it really does seem like we have the problem in the commercial core that needs a business improvement district. We do not have these problems in the outside of the commercial core. And while the county can address each individual residential home as their system fails, it really does seem to me that what we really need to focus on is the commercial core. You are not going to get people to vote to put in a $37 or $50 million project. I mean, they're just not going to do it. And I don't think you're going to be able to find the funding to bring it down to the point where they're going to vote for it. So the commercial core really needs to figure out, what to do with these problems, and they need to tax themselves to actually get that completed. So those are my comments.
Thank you. We got came in a little late, so tapping on at the end. I'm Megan Decomper, and a lot of you know I was Supervisor Hartman, and we happened to have a meeting with Jane Gray of the Regional Water Quality Control Board today. Jen was just hoping to maybe search around again for a little grant money, which sounds like their budget is pretty decimated at the state level, so that was not sounding promising. And also Jen was hoping to reiterate, thanks for your continued patience, we're still figuring it out. And Jane is always very much, just remember, it's not forever. I'm sure LACCO probably there's always a similar pressure, but she was talking about having someone become a representative again in June here to give an update maybe and reiterate some of the, from their perspective, pressures. And I asked, well, having a property and a home there myself, I'm interested. Are we talking about just not allowing ADUs or bathroom remodels, or what exactly are these pressures, these incentives? And she didn't name anything terribly specific, but just sounded like they were continuing with their at the state board, pressure on our area. And she said it's kind of shaping up, I hope it's not, to look like Los Osos, a mini one, but that's just from their perspective. It sounds like they're continuing to, as we all know, add their pressure to it. That's our update. Thank you. Okay, any further public comment? Anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is District Manager brief status report.
Yeah, we have a pretty full agenda tonight, and apart from that agenda, I didn't really have anything kind of high level to report. We'll talk about it all the time.
All right, very good. Well, any public comments on item 5? All right, moving on to consent agenda. Do we have any public comment on the consent agenda? Sorry.
So a couple of notes there. I tried to make it clear in the agenda that 2 of the invoices had changed between when the finance committee reviewed things. We received the Wallace Group one, and I saw some significant expense related to June 3rd, so I added those to mine. So those 2 have been modified from what the finance committee reviewed, or they're new. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everybody. The other 4 are exactly as they were presented to the finance committee, and they recommended.
Right. So public comment on the consent agenda. Doesn't look like any hands up online. right, any comments, questions from the board, or can we get a motion?
Just asked to clarify, so on the Wallace, on item 6, Wallace Group, 47,000.
I can't read.
I'm sorry, on line 6, the Wallace Group, that's the one you're saying has been modified,
It's new.
new,
It was not reviewed by the finance committee.
the 47,000.
Right.
How do we feel about approving a $47,000 invoice?
We can hold that one down and put it to the finance committee review. Sorry. That's right, sorry. I will say I did look at the invoices before, and I did see the however, we can hold that one back and have the finance committee review it first, or
Madam President, maybe a question for Mr. Savage, is this invoice, are they within their scope or within their budget for the work that they're doing?
Yes. I would say I reviewed it, if the finance committee didn't.
I have no problem moving forward. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve item 6 as declaring.
I'll second.
all right, we have a first and a second, all in favor? Opposed? All right, motion passes, thank you. All right, item 7 is the discussion regarding the June 3rd, 2026 workshop.
Sorry. Okay, so June 3rd, there's, I didn't say one for myself. There are cards on all the seats here. There's some extras over there for the June 3rd workshop. So this item really is not so much to talk about the Wallace Group's 30% design, 30-year life cycle cost, other than to say that it's been posted and has been posted since late last month on our technical studies and reports page. If you haven't looked at it, it's the draft version of it. And the way this process was set up was they would provide us a draft, we review it before they finalize the 30%. So if the board or the public has any input into that document that they, want to see a table or they think that information would be better, whatever, this is the time to bring that forward. Otherwise, they'll work over the next several weeks. They'll finalize that document so that when we go to the June 3rd meeting, it'll be a final 30%. For those, I think somebody mentioned it, but the technical subcommittee did review it and had a few comments and questions. I had some as well for them. Some of them are simple things like there's a couple of links that are broken, so review to this file, and files are there. Also, there's some questions around things like pipe sizes and what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done now. So they're working on cleaning that sort of stuff up already. And then as part of the budget item or later item, there's the addendum that we can talk about as far as what additional scope you might want them to do before they finalize that, if anything, or as we move forward into the next budget year or the next couple of months. So while I might be able to answer a couple of simple questions for your board or something, this is really not, I've got all these questions about the document, right? It's more about clarifying it so I can get to a final version. Expectations for June 3rd will be, the workshop will be here. It'll be kind of a typical workshop in as much as Wallace Group and I will present, mostly Wallace Group will present 30% design, 30-year life cycle cost. And then the plan is to actually break into tables after initial Q&A with the entire community. In case people have very specific or detailed questions, I've got, let me look here and I'll tell you the list of folks. I've got the City of Solvang lined up, the Wallace Group, County EHS, Central Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, and possibly ID1 and Supervisor Hartman's office. Come to kind of host a table where people can go directly to them and ask questions if they have something very specific. My plan would be to, pair up a board member with each one of those tables or myself or district engineer Pike so that we can hear them, capture everything and make sure that we understand what people were asking as well. I'm doing that, and I think the discussion there was, some people just aren't comfortable asking questions in front of a large group, but totally comfortable getting information sort of one-on-one. And then again, some of the questions you'll they're bound to get into some really nitty gritty detail that general public might just go, whatever, can we just move to the next one? So that'll be an opportunity for those questions as well. One question I have for the board, I was not planning on trying to have GSI here to talk about the groundwater monitoring. We could, where it says, I'm sure they would show, but it'd be an additional cost for us. That's it. Yeah, so again, this item really is to reconfirm the date, June 3rd. We've got the cards, there'll be mailers going out, so on, just like we've done in the past ones. And if there's input on the documents. So,
Okay. How about if we open up to public comment first, and then we'll bring back to the board? Are you good with that? Okay. Do you have any public comment on this item?
Just a question on the card mailers. Am I okay to ask this question? I just want to make sure, does it go to the site address or the mailing address to the property owner?
So an answer? Yeah.
Yes.
So we do it two ways. We send out about 150 of them go to a specific address. And every post office box in Los Olivos gets one. So some people end up with 2 or 3, depending upon how many properties they have and where they send things, right? So it goes to the address that is listed on somebody's property tax.
The site. Okay.
Not necessarily the title, because the way the assessor does it, that you actually carry 2 addresses potentially there.
Right. Okay. Perfect. All right.
Any other public comment on the site? Any hands up online?
Yeah, one. There we go.
Okay, go ahead, Anna Marie Gott. Are you on mute? Anna Marie, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Board members, I just want to, talk about how we're actually communicating to people to try to get them to come to these meetings and to really publicize this. We really do not have enough people at these meetings so that we can get an understanding and the board can get an understanding of how committed people are to actually voting yes on this project. So, do we append email and phone numbers to the property list database that you guys have? Do you send out robocalls to get people to attend and reminders about the meetings? How else are you going to publicize it? Do you target people on Facebook or Facebook groups? Will we actually send out multiple physical postcards out to people that own property in the district? Will you advertise online on certain blogs or newspapers? We have Newshawk, Ed Hat, Santa Barbara News Press, San Ynez Valley News, and other papers that might actually have people that own property here in the valley and actually get these newspapers or read these newspapers online, and as a reminder for them to attend. And are we asking newspaper staff to actually cover this issue, or even the meeting itself? I don't think we're doing any of these things. And I think that you actually need to start doing these things. You might send out a physical letter, but that's about it. Or you might post something over at the post office or a few other places. But that doesn't actually get enough people to actually come to the meetings, to actually understand what you guys are doing and to understand the financial burden that they will actually have if any of these things go through. So these are my comments. I hope you guys really reflect on this and, step up your game in trying to get people to attend these meetings, because I think we've got just the same people attending the meetings and not new people. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last call. Any other public? Back to the board. So any discussion or
Mr. Savage, what would you say is the, like if I go back to the wall and stuff, questions or comments or suggestions, what would you say the timeline for that would be? finish yesterday or tomorrow or a week or?
So you're kind of asking, what would their turnaround time be? I think it kind of depends on the question, right?
No, I mean, between now and the final document, like what would be the drop dead date to get them any comments so that they have adequate time to consider it and include it or not in the document?
Right, so we were trying to button it up by the end of the month, so, you've probably got a week, 10 days at most. But, yeah, and then their ability to respond is going to depend on the question, right?
Yeah.
And say, hey, the pipe sizes are confusing to me, they can clarify that, but if you ask for a whole new, that's going to be it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, I watched the technical committee I watched the technical committee video, and I just want to make sure if all of the comments or questions from the technical committee are already being forwarded to Wallace Group for addressing, then I'm good. So, but for instance, on the equalization issue, getting more visibility from the city of Salt Lake prior, if we can. And then on the bridge issue with the county, if we know with those, because those impact the cost. And I don't know, and if that's something that can be addressed in the 30% design, or if that is for a future design. So those are. And then the other thing for me was just on the step costs was the, I'll say, administrative costs for obtaining easements. I don't think that's in here. So there's some issues, I think, to better fully understand, I don't say the burden, but the cost of the step because of the retention of an on-site facility. We need to know what those are in addition to the engineering costs, what those soft costs are. So again, I don't know if that happens between now and the end of the month, but those are to me big potential big ticket decisions or financial elements that would impact these costs.
Ms. Wagner was on the Zoom call from Wallace. So
Right.
Did they hear our questions? Yes.
Yeah, Carrie was very responsive.
She was.
Yeah, she was great. She understood that where the questions were. She knew that that's where the questions were. They were working on finalizing a lot of those specifics. I think they were supposed to be addressed
in this final document.
Correct.
It was hard for me to, and I know, and I appreciate the work you guys have done, but I wasn't certain if those are to be wrapped up in the 30%
I think they are.
document or
I
something.
think that was my understanding is that all those questions that we presented at the meeting, that Carrie wanted to have those addressed before the final document. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it matters a lot.
No,
Like you were saying, it really does.
I just wasn't clear from the meeting.
It sure sounded okay.
And just to be clear too, the final document, that's the 30%.
I understand. That's why I was asking the question. Is it
Final initial
30%? Right.
Our final first.
Okay, thank you. Those are my comments.
Just a follow on, I watched the technical committee meeting as well. Thank you to both. Great. It was good questions, good discussion, excellent information. The items that you guys had brought up, like the equalization, the bridge crossing, the travel time to Salt Lake, et cetera. If there are any of those items that are not, I know there was some discussion about things that would be addressed in we do in this part of a 60% or 90%. So I would say if there are any of those items that would be in the 30%, just at least, either have that information available, because likely a question might come up, especially if anyone else watches the technical committee meeting with Wallace Group. So, but again, thank you guys for all the work on that. All right, so Mr. Savage, do you have enough direction then for the June 3rd workshop at this point? Or
I believe so, yes. making sure that people know, by way of response to some of the public comment, we do use emails. Several of them will go out. We do use Facebook, Nextdoor, one other that I'm forgetting. So, a lot of those are in place. And we have reached out in the past to some of the newspapers. So those have all been attempted, at least in the past. Some of the newspapers quite simply don't care. We wish they would. You try and write an interesting article and they just, that's nice that they set it in the pile on the side and you never hear from them again. Yes, and there'll be multiple emails. No, we won't probably send out postcards. Each postcard mailing is about $500 per, $600 per, and that's in our budget a big deal for each one. Timing to that is important to me, I think, and so those will go out around the 15th or 20th of next month, so people have enough time to get it on their calendar, but not so far out that they'll get a card and it'll be so far out.
I would just say one other thing I'd like to see for the workshop is all the discussion about the Wallace Group and 30% is great, but we also definitely need to have a discussion about where we are with our funding efforts. Because I know me personally, I've been pretty clear not putting this out there to the community for a 218 vote without significant help, and loans are not help. I don't care if you're a billionaire or somebody on retired fixed income, the cost is simply too high as it is right now. So I definitely personally would like to see something where we talk about and address where we are with our funding efforts.
To that, and I think the other thing that I'm hoping that EHS will maybe more clearly address is we had that memo. A lot of people probably forgot about it, but we did have a memo from EHS that said, well, if you guys aren't successful, what will we do? And what will be the requirements on homeowners and businesses within the district? I know that, what's Jason's time? Director, I guess now, of EHS, Jason Johnson, was talking about trying to get the water board to clarify and maybe be a little more succinct in their list of options. I can also say that, one of the things we didn't ask the Wallace Group to do, but I've got Dr. Fayram and I both are kind of working in parallel paths to get current costs for advanced on-site systems, because we've often heard that if we don't implement the community solution, we will all be implementing advanced on-site systems when our current systems fail. I talked to one earlier today that says he's installing them. They're anywhere between $80,000 and $120,000 per property, and then a minimum of $1,800 maintenance fee per year, plus pumping every 3 to 6 years. So, that's the do nothing answer, right? It's $80,000 to $120,000 according to him. I'm trying to get some actual estimates of systems that have been implemented in our county. We may not have any in Los Olivos, but they've implemented them in the county. So that'll be systems that are approved by HS, and we can see what those costs will be. Because again, that's the kind of do nothing option, right? So the only other thing I would say about that is remember that if you go down that path, you're paying for it when you have to do it, right? There's no, unless you take out a home equity loan or something like that, that's a one-time cost, where the community would be a 30, maybe 40-year loan. Makes it a little easier extension for something.
Yeah, I was going to bring that point up, is if the case that we heard about, you have to write a check, and unless you have a pretty good credit limit on your credit card, you get a lot of miles for United if you did that, but you have to pay that up front. Whereas with the capital cost of the project, if approved, would be on your tax bill over 30 or 40 years. So you get a low rate interest payment for that spread out over time. So that's the advantage too of a community system rather than the individual offsite systems.
Can I make a quick kind of side? It's all related to the same topic. I've had 2 calls in the last 2 weeks from realtors. Apparently some of the folks that are going around pumping systems are beginning to implement what's required by the LAMP. So the LAMP's been in place since 2015, and there's bunch of requirements in there that were never necessarily implemented by people who are doing septic tank pumping. And the one that has been tripping realtors up lately is there is a line in the lamp that says if your tank is more than 12 inches below grade, you must have a riser that gets to within 12 inches of grade. So some of these older systems, people have been saying, hey, finally, I'm selling my house, pump my tank. And they come out and say, well, first we have to install risers. And that is countywide. It's not Los Olivos alone. It's countywide and been in place since 2015. It's just that some of the pumpers, I think, are getting tired of digging up the same hole and going down 3 or 4 feet. So they're starting to say, no, it's required.
Madam President, just a word of caution to the board. We are on a specific agenda item and we seem to be moving away from it. So maybe bring it back a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no more further comments or questions for Mr. Savage regarding the two third board, we'll move on. All right, moving on to item 8, consideration of the draft proposed fiscal year 26-27 budget and the setting of the budget hearing date.
Okay, so shifting gears then. So each year we have a process by which we adopt a budget. Where's the second? Sorry, too many windows. Okay. That'll come up. All right, so for this particular budget, as it says, I prepared the draft budget, proposed budget, posted it late last month. The Finance Committee reviewed it last Friday, and I posted it to this board meeting. Tonight, we're going to review my proposed budget. I'll be walking through it, not in heavy detail, but with enough, hopefully, that everyone can understand. Sometime before the 15th of May, assuming we set the hearing for June 6th, rather, we have to legally publish a notice in the newspaper. In this case, it would go to the San Ynez paper in the Santa Maria Times. Then, as part of, again, I just listed it as a 6:10 meeting. You have a special item. It's a budget hearing. It's not really an item on your agenda. It's a hearing, kind of a separate activity that evening. And then within 10 or 20 days, I post the final budget. So that's sort of the timeline we're working towards. Let me jump in then to the budget itself. Make sure that I've got a second. All right, so this is the budget when it pops up there, and I'll make it a little bigger as well. This is the budget that's posted online. Anyone can see it. They want. Got to hide things in my computer. There we go. It was put together basically the same way I've done the last several years, and the way this was structured is intended to make it as easy as possible for somebody who's trying to read it, right? So there's a verbal description via words, and then there's a spreadsheet that basically says the same thing, okay? So you can, if you're better at just reading words and kind of following along that way, you can read the words. If you're better at just following along in kind of the various pieces, you can look at it that way. I do highlight a couple of areas. For instance, within revenues, you can see that I'm projecting that our special tax assessment will be up ever so slightly. Interest income will be about the same as this year, and our total cash and revenues, therefore, will both be up. So I just try and give a year-over-year comparison, just so people have a sense of what's happening from a revenues perspective. Then I do a similar sort of thing on the expense side. You can see that the blue is the current year. We have projected a lot of professional and special services because the Wallace Group 30% design, as well as other professional services we've hired, for instance, Padre to do environmental and some others throughout the year. So that's why the big jump here. The rest of it is just kind of typical year-over-year sorts of things. I'm going to bring up a separate spreadsheet in a minute, but if you go online, you can see essentially from 2020 all the way through today, all of the budgets we've ever produced. And the way we do it is we talk about, what's the budget look like in this case that we set for the current year. Where are we at when it took the snapshot of the budget was March 26th, so that I have some actual data that's not just kind of projection from what we thought we might be doing this fiscal year. And then based on that, I go through and I say, well, here's what I think that number is going to look like for next year. Now, importantly, there's some key assumptions that I think are worth noting. As I've done in past years, unless a grant or something is either 100% guaranteed, we have none of those on the horizon, or the funds have already been received, I don't include it in the budget as revenue. Now, doesn't mean that your board can't consider, trying to get more grants. Doesn't mean that we won't end up with some TOT measure. Doesn't mean that we haven't gone out for additional 218 to try and raise revenues or taken out a loan. All things the board can talk about and consider. But from a budgeting perspective, unless it's in hand or guaranteed, it's not a revenue as far as I'm concerned. Okay. So that assumption then leads you to the next assumption, right? If you don't have any additional revenues, we either have about a 7 or 8 year runway to get to a final design, or we take some other path, right? One that probably leads to, dissolution, right, of the district, which means, of course, loss of local control, return everything to the county of Santa Barbara for their decision-making process. Where I could, within this kind of budget spreadsheet looking thing, I included my assumptions. There's some assumptions in here. For instance, if I needed a CPI number, I used 2.5%. That's based on some averages and seemed like a reasonable number. We see things like YTD, that's year to date. So that's, kind of why I use that. This Sally, SALY, is same as last year. So that's what that stands for. In some cases, I might have adjusted it down or up just based on experience of what happens within our budget and what I anticipate for next year. So let me just walk through this real quick. So if I assume there was some savings from the Wallace Group on their contract, since I put this together, they're now saying it's probably $130,000, $140,000 they'll be under contract for the 30% design. And we have this other list of things here that your board can talk about as far as budgetary items you might want to try and add into the mix of things. So the number that's this beginning balance is actually going to be a little higher than that because the Wallace Group will not spend as much as I was projecting to have them spend back just a couple of weeks ago. So we'll start out with a little more than $58,000. I don't know exactly how much, and we won't know until we get the Wallace Group's final bills and the board decides what else they want to do this year. But it's going to be around that number. If you include then the special tax assessment of about $295,000, that means our total revenues that you can use next year is just a little bit north of $360,000. Then on the expenditure side, get this thing to scroll down. Typical insurance, typical accounting and auditing fees, and we're going to talk about the audit in a minute. I think might be wise to consider a number that's something like twice that for next year, because I suspect we might be considering a new auditor for next year, given the lag this one is shown. Same as last year for memberships. That's our CSDA membership. Cut back the professional and special services again because there's no real contracts that I've included in here to do any work toward 60% or assessment engineering or any of that sort of stuff. I figured that's a conversation that your board needs to have as part of the budgeting process here. Do you want to include any of that? Do you want to say, nope, we're not going to do any additional technical work until we've got funding to get to a full 90%? The board needs to kind of weigh in and say, this is how we'd like to see that done. Happy to make those changes. If you decide, no, we'd like to spend, the savings, quote unquote, that Wallace Group is going to have from the 30%, tell me what you want to spend it on and I'll include it in here. As it sits right now, I didn't include anything other than some minor expenses that I expect to hit next year. Legal fees, contract services for myself and the district engineer, publications, so on and so forth, usual services and supplies. With Olivos, if we did that approach, at the end of the year, including, our operational reserve, almost $160,000. So I guess technically your board could say, well, we could move forward and figure out how to best spend $160,000 such that, we're moving the project forward. But again, it's kind of an interesting situation to be in because we can't get to 60% with that amount of money. We certainly can't get to 90% or final design with that amount of money. So interesting discussion for your board to have. Here's the detailed spreadsheet. I'm not going to try and walk through this here, but as you can see, all the way back to 2020, each year budget is in a different color. You can see how things have trended over time, if you're so interested. Here's that timeline again. And then just a note for me, if I could, as I think we all know, I wear two hats. I wear the assistant hat part of the time, and I wear the general manager hat the rest of the time. And sitting on this side of the table versus where the 5 electeds are, I think this is a challenging year for you guys. And you've got some really difficult decisions you're going to have to make. And I just, both as a resident and as your general manager, I just want to say thank you to the 5 of you for the things you're doing. I know you hear from your neighbors and people who aren't your neighbors and the people who catch you in the grocery store or as you're trying to walk down the street with your dog. And I know it's not always easy, but just from your general manager and somebody who also lives in the district, thank you for the hard work you're putting towards this. And it's going to be a tough year, particularly as we look to try and get through a decision about how to collect and then what to do with the budget. So with that, happy to take questions or public comment or whatever you want.
Everyone's okay, we'll do public comment first and we'll bring it back to the board. All right, so do we have any public comment on this item? Yes, yeah.
You were talking about in the budget that there's something a little extra that the board can decide what to spend it on. And I think that a very interesting thing to spend it on would be, we have a watershed coming from the agricultural area, down Big Old Mountain, down Foxing Canyon, down those roads. The nitrates in the wells on the north side are the ones that are over, but in town, they're not. So we don't really know, like in San Ynez, if we solve the wastewater problem, if we're still going to have nitrates in those wells, because it may be coming from the watershed. So is there any way that you could test where that water is coming from or have an aqua flow study for where those nitrates are coming from? Because we may put in a sewage system and have the same nitrate problem. And if we find that the nitrates are coming out from the watershed, then it's a whole different category of how we're going to treat it and how we're going to deal with the problem. Because it really seems to me that the nitrates are coming in from agricultural areas like they did in San Ynez, since it's not in town. So maybe you could consider that it's called Atlas that does that type of investigation, and maybe you consider doing that. Because if it came that it was just nitrates from there, then the whole thing could be rearranged. And I really feel that if we try to pass the sewer through Los Olivos, we may fail, and that'll undo the CSD and all of the local control that we have established. So if we can find a way to disprove the nitrates, then we're not under any wire from the state mandate or anybody else to do the sewage. And yeah.
Well, first of all, we formed a district, and the district was to try to have a local solution to the problems that were told to us that we have by the county environmental health and the state water quality control board. We've worked long and hard to come up with a solution, and I really applaud all of the people that have been elected members of this board that have worked diligently to try to come up with a reasonable solution. I think the day has come where we can see that we do not have the funds. We don't have the funds, even for the engineering and the environmental assessments for this plan or for any other modified plan that was going to come out. If anything, I think that's been very valuable information for us to know. It's all been speculation, but now we know what's in front of us as a community. And I think it's time for the County of Santa Barbara and the State Water Regional Control Board to come to the table to help us solve this problem. Because we don't have the funds and they're going to have to find them. That's the bottom line. You cannot move forward and make any further commitments to do anything unless we have the funds. And you're not going to assess your ways out of this.
Any other public comment? We have it's like we have two thumbs up online. Anna Marie got.
Yes, I'd just like to echo a few of the things that other people have mentioned, and of course, the presentation is has focused on, which is we are really at the point where we don't have the funds, we don't have grants that are going to pay for anything, or anything really on the horizon, and we really are, starting to look at dissolution. So that then begs the question, are we going to move forward with any of these things that the Wallace Group has in their addendum? Are we really going to even move forward with a workshop? And if we move forward with a workshop, what is that workshop really going to talk about? Someone, and I apologize, I don't know who it was talking about the nitrates from the agricultural use. With the remaining money that we do have, maybe that is a really good study to actually conduct. That might give the state, a lot more information, and of course the residents more information about where all of these nitrates are coming from. So, those are my comments. I hope you guys really, take those to heart. With the remaining money that we have and, with this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think we have one more hand up. I can't see who it is. Okay, Catherine Hart. Go ahead.
Okay, I think the agenda item is the budget. So one thing I wasn't clear on, and I'm sure you guys are, but is whether ongoing groundwater monitoring is included in the budget as it's currently drafted or as you're contemplating it, because I know I've heard the board consider taking groundwater monitoring out of the budget and just not doing it and getting more, hopefully, ideally with the county perhaps taking over that cost. But I think stopping the groundwater monitoring would really be tragic. And so I hope that that is where the money will be spent. And that kind of piggybacks on, these ideas about how do we target the problem. And I know it's stressful to almost be out of money. I don't want to be pessimistic. I think our one saving grace are those stinking groundwater monitoring wells that actually give us current, real scientific data that can guide the decision making, so that if it's a smaller problem, if it's a localized or a hyper localized problem that can be solved, truly, addressed in a meaningful way with a smaller, cheaper solution, that might be a blessing at this point. But those groundwater monitoring numbers are huge in terms of where do we go from here. And, rather than putting the cart before the horse and saying, well, let's just build the plan we have on the table, but even if we can't afford it, and even if it bankrupts us and requires the board to be dissolved, but rather let's take the data we have, let's take the horse and have that pull the wagon. And so you've got great data. Let's use it and maybe help that drive your budgeting decisions. Just a suggestion.
Thank you.
If I may, nobody else, just because it was raised. I did not include funding for well testing. I assumed that either the county did it for your board fire correction, either the county paid for it or didn't have it.
All right, bring it back to the board for any questions, comments, or or down the line, Tom.
All right, Mr. Savage, maybe you can remind all of us, we have a grant application in with the state now. What's the process and timeline for when we would hear about that?
So I'm assuming you're talking about the SRF grant?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a planning grant. They will be making kind of I've described this before, they kind of rack and stack things, right? They first rack and stack the construction projects, and then below those are planning projects like ours. And the racking and stacking means they look at things like, where's your median household income? Are you a disadvantaged community? Do you have reuse? All those triggers that push you up in the scoring. So short answer to your question is we'll see the initial list sometime next month with decisions presumably in June. They've got to wait to figure out how much money they're going to have before they can start allocating.
And then on to what to do with a funding balance. I would tend to err on keeping some reserve, because if other grant opportunities come up, you need to have money in order to make those applications. So I think we need to be a little careful on making sure that we have the ability to do that. There's also other costs. Last month we had 2 Public Records Act requests, and those all cost money for Mr. Savage and council. It takes, although we don't get paid for that. And so, those costs all enter into it. When we talk about the Wallace savings, I'm wondering if, not going against what I just said about not spending all this money, but one of the key issues, could be is the equalization. And I'm wondering if Wallace could help. I don't believe the city of Solvang will be unreasonable in that regard. I think it's a common thing to ask for, but if we can provide information about the timing and how this would all work, that maybe we could apply some of that money to ask Wallace to do I don't know what you call it, a technical opinion or something like that would lead to believe that equalization wouldn't be needed, and that's a cost savings on the project there as well. So just throw that out for that. And then lastly, I'm wondering if we should talk with the regional board again. I don't remember when our last check-in with them has been, and again, they've been supportive of us, I think, overall, but I think they also need to understand the reality of what we're looking at here as well. And then also, I've been keeping in contact with Assemblyman Hart, so I'll continue to do that. And I know they're working on this funding issue as well.
I think with the budget, unless we were told by EHS and Regional Water Control Board that if we could prove that there were higher nitrates north of the district, then we wouldn't have a mandate, then I can see spending money for something like that. But if we're just gonna do it, but we're still gonna be under the mandate, doesn't make a lot of sense to spend, however much it's gonna be, $100,000 to try to find out more the source of the nitrates if he doesn't change our stats. And my understanding is, we've been mandating, we have to do something for the density of the septic tanks that are in this district. And even if all the water testing started getting better, I think we're still under that mandate, and we still need to find a solution for the problems they've told us we have. So I just don't know if that's a good place to put the money, unless we were told by EHS and the Water Quality Control Board that we can change our status.
It's my understanding also that they did studies like that back previously, thinking it was coming from the dump and from somewhere else. And they've done studies, and it was not proven that that's where it was coming from. So This has been going on since 1974. This isn't a new issue, and it's not going to change. It is what it is, and that's what the edict is that it's this area, and Ballard and Jan Acres are all have the same kind of problem area designation. And at this point, we're the only ones really doing anything to try to resolve it. We can stick our head in the sand and figure it's just going to magically go away, but it isn't. And, you know, we have several different feelers out and applications out trying to get more funding and look at everything. I mean, look across the country as far as getting funding right now, everything's kind of in a jump. We don't know what we're going to get. We need people to help us. We need people the government in different areas to step up. This isn't a problem that we just came up with 3 or 4 years ago or in 2018. It's been going on for a long time, and it's not going to change. And, you know, I think we've been given a task, and we're doing everything we possibly can to resolve the issue. And quite frankly, if we get to a point where we can't fund it, then we have to turn back to the county and say, look, you know, we've done everything we can do. And, you know, we need your help. We need the state's help. We need the county's help. We need everybody's help, because this isn't going to go away. This stuff isn't going to stop. We have a relatively shallow groundwater system. And where it's coming from, you know, I'm not a magician either. I can't figure it out. It needs to be solved. It's not going to go away. And I'm not ready to throw in the towel myself, but it's going to come to a point where we haven't got any choice. And no, I agree. Trying to assess our way out of this isn't the way to do it. But, you know, I don't know which way to turn on, other than keep going the way we're going and keep trying to get the funding and doing what we're doing.
So on the budget, I think it's worth pursuing as far as Wallace Group, making sure we've got visibility on those bigger issues we talked about. Well, I'm on your memo, the additional memo. So I'm thinking coordinating with the county and city of Solving on the equalization of the bridge issue and sensitivity and analysis. So that keeps us moving forward. We can do it with the budget we have. And then we've got to hold the county and the water board's feet to the fire on this. I'm sorry the timing sucks for them, but it sucked for us for 40 years plus. And now we're at the point where we've got to fix it. And it's either we've got to come up with some money to keep us moving forward, or it's going to be back on them anyway. So we all have a vested interest in keeping the district together, keeping local control, and working collaboratively. So I have a hard time believing we can't find $1.5 million. Not interested in talking about this solution. This point.
I'll just add on the Wallace addendum, the memo. I'm with Lisa in that I think that the coordination with the county and the updates, these, just the question I have is these will help, these will be done in time for the 30% design if we say yes. Is that correct or no?
So and there are copies of this in the back if anybody doesn't know what we're referring to. So they identified 3 items that would cost roughly $40,000. No, they will not all be done because, for instance, coordination with the county and the city, that could be a multi-week and month conversation. But the point is, you got to start those conversations at some point, right? And so I think it's probably reasonable to include those if that's your board's direction, to include those, $40,000 worth of expense to do those 3 activities. It'll keep Wallace Group engaged, which is a good thing, and it will move us forward just enough such that, ultimately the June 3rd workshop is about trying to make a decision on how we're going to collect, right? So you're going to need some of that information, for instance, some of the sensitivity analysis to make a better decision at that point. So I do think getting that information.
Well, and if they could, I mean, coordination with the county and city, if they could include the equalization issue, and it seems to me there's there's probably some easy to get facts to try to compel the city of solving that equalization may not be needed. And maybe it is, but what I'm hearing and thinking about is that it may not be necessary. So we could have them include something there, a technical memo or something that would help. That would be a good thing to have them work on. We're going to do that anyway.
Yeah. Well, I would be, I mean, I'm a little bit with Lisa. I just have to believe we're gonna work through this. And I don't want to see this district dissolve either after all this hard work, but I just believe there is a path forward. We're working really hard to make it happen. I would be in favor of spending the 40K since we are already under budget, and have them get those 3 items done.
And that leaves 100,000 for the point that I made earlier on.
Right, exactly. Do we need a motion for that?
I could take it as direction staff. I mean, I've seen enough heads nod. At least 4 of you are supporting that. I just didn't see Dr. Palmer's head nod, but
That's 4.
So that's enough direction to include the 40,000 in the budget to work with law group. Any motion that you do make should include what I've included in the agenda itself. So make sure you set a hearing date and direct me to public required hearing.
All right, is there any other further discussion, questions, et cetera, on the budget? If not, somebody like to make a motion? The details you gotta add.
Give me a minute, I'll take
Take a shot at it.
Here, you want the agenda?
I'll make a motion that the budget be,
What do we think it's some,
we're gonna move it to the next meeting, or do we need to approve it as submitted?
yeah, no, we did have we set the hearing date.
Move that we have set the hearing date for
June 10th.
2026.
And post required notices required.
By May 10th.
Anything else that we need to have in there?
maybe just, I'll second that with the addition of, just noting the direction of the $40,000 expenditures.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you. All right, we have first and second, all in favor?
Because we're sending it here.
That's right, well,
Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry.
Vice President Nelson.
Aye.
Director Bayram.
Aye.
Director Parks. Aye. Director Palmer.
Aye.
President Kennedy.
Aye. Okay, thank you for all the work on this, Mr. Savage. All right, next item on the agenda is the consideration of assessment engineering services contracts.
Right, so a couple meetings ago, your board said, one of the things you might consider moving forward with as we move forward is an assessment engineering contract. We had already received as part of the Wallace Group's contract, DTA, that was part of their initial proposal. Then we went out back to NB5, who was the person or the group that did our initial assessment engineering effort, and then trying to get enough to make it kind of a more official sort of process. I did go through an RFP process, reached out specifically to 6 firms to try and get them to respond. One firm responded with a qualifying response. I did get more than one, but the other one clearly was not qualifying. So you've got those 3 in front of you, DTA, NV5, and SCI. Now, what you'll quickly note with those 3 is while they all responded to an RFP, the costs are wildly different. And if you dig into the detail, exactly how they're proposing to do the work and what they're proposing is also a little bit different. I will kind of start at the highest level. NV5 is the most expensive, but the most inclusive of all activities. They include just about everything except for some of the mailings that need to come out, including things like multiple meetings being attended here with us or via Zoom. Cost-wise, then things get a little more interesting. DTA and SCI are very similar in cost. What they've included as far as the actual Prop 218 process is a bit different in how they approach it. So there's some differences there. So you can't just look at it from oh, this was cheaper, that was more expensive. You got to really kind of dig in to understand what they're offering. Both of them, for instance, say, look, if you need me to attend meetings or people to attend meetings, there's going to be an additional charge for that, and the costs are different for that. I will say that all three of them meet what I would call the minimum requirements for what we need, meaning they will produce the assessment role, basically, that will be used and will allocate cost to each and every parcel within the district based on the loose direction that you previously given that we would then tighten up, meaning previously your board said you wanted to base it off of zoning and lot size, but you need to clarify that a little better, right? Do you want, 70% of it to go to the lot size and 30% to go to zoning, and within the lot size, how do you want to deal with that? So there's some more decisions to be made along those lines. Your board will have to give that direction to the assessment engineering firm. The alternative in there is just to tell them, look, we want to be able to tweak these things, like how much goes to lot size versus zoning, and they will include in their spreadsheets basically the ability to change that, right? So that you can see how that ripples through the community. So again, all three of them offer you what I would consider the minimal stuff. Then there's additional things like, will you help us through the 218 process? Will you do filings on our behalf? Will you answer public questions? Will you actually send out the mailings for the 218, all that sort of stuff? I will say that on some of those latter items, groups such as RCAC, which we are engaged with from time to time, they're one of the many groups in the state of California that offer services. They'll do some of that work for free. RGS, the communications firm you have on contract, their contract actually included putting together the official mailer that goes out to all the property owners. So some of this is a little bit duplicative of contracts that you've already kind of agreed to. Now, if you said to RGS, oh, we don't need to do that, they're not going to bill you for it. You're not going to be particularly upset, right? But I just want to be clear with the board and the public that, you do have some overlap here. And so I think there's probably 2 or 3 options for your board at this point, as far as assessment engineers is concerned. One, if you even want to decide to do something, right? You might just say, you know what, let's push this out until we get funding to get to 90%. You might say, yes, we want to move forward, but we don't want to start anything. Instead, we just want you, General Manager Savage, to go off and negotiate a final contract with one of the 3 vendors. Having that contract in place would allow you to move forward quickly, right? If and when we get funds to be able to move forward to the 90% design. Because in that big number that I had put in for the SRF loan, included assessment engineering costs, right? It was to get us all the way through to the 218 vote and get it processed. So the cost to do that is all in there. So if we can come up with funds, we could in fact make it happen. So that would speed things along in the future. Shouldn't hopefully we will get there. I think that's probably it. So do you want to do this? If so, do you want me to try and negotiate a contract? If you do want me to negotiate a contract, or is there one that you think you want to use? Couple of things, like I said, NV5 is the most comprehensive. There is some advantage in as much as we have Walls Group doing all the engineering. ETA was their proposed partner. They're right there from a cost perspective. So I would say there's some weight to add to that because they're used to working together. But beyond that, NV5, I think this engineer Pike would tell you, NV5 is the go-to group in the state. They know this better than anybody. Doesn't mean the others don't know it. Just, they're the all-stars in this list of things. I think, again, SCI and ETA could do the work just fine.
Thank you. We'll do public comment and then we'll break back to the board.
maybe you address this guy, but because there's a variation in the services that they're offering and also in costs, would it make sense to go back to them with a request for proposal that gave them a menu list of specifically what you expect for the Proposition 218 vote? And then they could go through that specifically and say, yes, I do that. No, I don't. And therefore, you really could be looking at apples for apples and not apples for oranges.
Is it an easy answer? Quick answer.
Yeah, so I have reached out to both SCI and DTA to try and get some clarification about, to try and understand where some of these costs would be. They can't turn it around 24 hours kind of thing. So some of that information is already coming, but yeah, if your board said, hey, we don't want them to put together the little flyer. You could direct Bruce to your technical committee or your project management committee to go through the contract and pull some of that information out.
Any other public comment on this item?
One-on-one.
I can't see who it is. Catherine Moore, go ahead.
Hi, it's not really a comment, it's a question, and I know you can't answer it tonight, but when you're looking at those assessment engineer proposals, I heard talk of lot size and zoning, but a couple months ago, I know Mr. Savage gave a presentation in which he showed that, how the weighting done by the assessment engineer could give the downtown commercial properties so much greater weight and I understand because they would get such a significant benefit from the project, but that their collective votes would outweigh all the residential votes combined. And so I guess that's the zoning component, but do you have a mechanism in working on selecting your assessment engineer that would allow you to tinker with that approach in case that's not the direction that the board wants to go? I just hope that that's in there somewhere. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Chair, if I may go.
Yes.
That's what I was referring to. We just tell them what levers we want to be able to pull. They'll include that in spreadsheets.
Yeah. All right. Any other public comment? All right. Bring it back to the board. Go ahead.
Just a couple of thoughts and maybe a question. I haven't talked to Mr. Savage about this, but we have 3 people. I wouldn't mind if Madam President, if you wanted to task Mr. Savage and I to have a quick online interview with all of these people. I have done assessment engineering reports before. Well, I've done one. I always like just to talk to the project manager and just see how they're approaching this and just get a better feel with that. I would be in favor of pushing this off until June when we know more about our funding, and that would give us a little bit of time to interact with them and then move forward at that time if we do that. So that would be my
And I don't know if it's a great idea. And also, just looking at the contracts and stuff, I just like the idea of, DTA just because they work so close with Wallace. I think that could be beneficial. And the fact that they're about half the cost. So,
well, and that would be the ability to what did you do with Wallace last? To tell
right. No, I think it's a good idea. Just I like the association, but then I don't know.
Yeah.
It certainly isn't my expertise. So.
I think that's very accurate.
So
she does.
I thank you for offering. I think that's a good idea. I was going to say, I think it's not that difficult for DTA to reallocate this based on the tasks they have listed. I think overall we should separate the assessment engineering activities from the Prop 218 activities. And so I would just ask DTA to do that, and I would ask SCI to do that. They refer to the Prop 218 activities, but they don't give us a number for it. So I'm guessing they'll come in about the same. I was on the same wavelength as you, Tom, as far as interviews, also references. And I don't want to make this an laborious process for the general manager. So if you're willing to help with that, good, that's great. And then I'd also say, to your point about deferring until June, it'd be great to have it locked and loaded so that we are ready to go when we move forward. But I also would look to the general manager for timing, so he's maximizing his time over the next couple of months. So if, in other words, I don't want this to take priority if you should be spending time talking to the city of Salt Lake and the county in advancing, getting some of those bigger questions pursued. Could be deferred a month or two at least.
Yeah, yeah, so thank you very much for the family to help with that. Yeah, I think that the DTA, if they could, it's really tasks 1 through 4 that are what we'd be looking at, or so a little bit, they could refine and give us a number on that. That would be helpful. I think that might get us. I don't know. I think our community is so small. It's hard for me to imagine that we would have a really challenging stuff in engineering report, but I could be completely wrong. I guess, but what I'm saying is I'm not sure, even though MV5 is the go-to, I just think they're really outside of the scope of what we really could afford, even if we get some financial assistance. We still have to be prudent with whatever money we do end up getting and make sure we're spending it that's best as possible for the community. So, I mean, personally, I do like DTA a lot, and I think they would be just fine. And again, the task 1 before that takes out the, well, actually, task number 5 was the one that RGS would be able to handle if we were looking at the DTA contract. Is that correct? The public notices and ballot protest procedure, that's what RGS said they would help us with. As well as our CAC, right? Yeah, okay. So again, I think DTA, if they could give us a number for 1 through 4. I'm with Lisa too. If we can queue up at least a contract that could be ready to go by the June workshop, not approve it, but just have it ready to go should we get the funding, that would help keep us moving forward. Enough direction.
So I'd like to, if I could, I just want to clarify. So what I've heard is that Director Farrow and I will get all 3 of them, not just 2 of them, or one of them, all 3 of them on the phone, just kind of walk through their proposal, hear feedback from them. But in particular, you want to hear some focus on getting tasks 1 through 4 requoted from DTA, and to the point that the public made, I've been working on, really get all 3 of them to quote those 4 tasks in a succinct manner, so we could do some cost comparisons as well. Well, and if I can, I'd ask, let's focus on the June 10th meeting as opposed to the June 3rd.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah.
I would just maybe think that I agree that NV5 and DTA, maybe we just talk to those 2 initially, and then that would save us something working. What's your thought on that?
Yeah.
Either way.
Not going to take that much more time.
Let's go. Yeah, there's not. I want to be sensitive to this time. So it's not that big a deal. Let's just go.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. Okay, so did you get anything else you need from us?
No.
Okay, terrific. All right, then, I don't think we need a motion on this one, right? Okay, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is let's see, where we at? Number 10, consideration of the fiscal year 2024-25 audit.
Yeah, so Moss Leader Hard Time was extremely late and did not meet their deliverable timelines. They were supposed to, at the latest, have delivered us the audit, quite some time ago. Let's leave it at that. It was so late, in fact, that it didn't make last Friday's subcommittee. It is in front of you. I have reviewed it. I asked the finance committee to be prepared to review it as soon as it got published. I don't know what reviews have or have not been done by them specifically. There's nothing in it that is particularly surprising. As we've said before, we have a fairly straightforward budget. We do have a new auditor this year, person and group doing it. So they had a lot of questions. I spent a lot more time on this audit than I had to in prior years. I will say, somewhat in MLH's defense, though, they're auditing the year when the county shifted to a new budget system, right? So they had to be in two systems and reconciling what was happening before and what made it into the new system. And whenever you do that sort of a financial transition, how things get posted and when they get posted changes. So what you see on one side, you really have to pay extra close attention on the new side, meaning the new system side. So it was, from that perspective, a little more difficult. There's no big findings or anything like that. It's fairly straightforward. I guess I'd just say that two things related to the audit. One, because it's getting so late, we actually received a semi-threatening letter from the state of California. State controller is responsible for making sure we filed our financial documents in a timely fashion. They want to see it done by the end of the month. So if your board decides you're not ready to approve the draft, then I'm going to be recommending a special meeting. If you're willing to approve the draft and direct me accordingly to file documents with the state of California, that's fine. So any motion that you make, please be sure to approve the draft audit is written, and then direct me and or the president to sign, and make sure we've done proper filings with the state of California.
Yeah. Okay, we'll open it up to public comment first. Anybody online?
No.
Okay. The board then?
Prepared for a motion?
Yeah.
So I'll move that we approve the fiscal year 24-25 draft audit as presented, and direct the president and or the general manager to sign as appropriate, and direct the general manager to file finalized report and any related documents with the state of California as appropriate.
Second. All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
But I'd like to do a roll call if that's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
No, it's okay. Just because filing with the state, I want to make sure I'm covered.
Yeah.
Director Fair, Director Palmer.
Aye.
Director Parks.
Aye.
Vice President Nelson.
Aye.
President Kennedy.
Aye.
Thank you.
Just one quick question. I know you said that they're supposed to have it done by the end of this month. Are they on track with that? They indicated?
Yes. Yes. And getting the filings done with the state.
Okay.
It takes a couple hours, but to make it happen. For sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We don't want to see anything.
That's right. All right. Next time on the agenda are reports. We'll start with the subcommittee reports. Finance committee, we did meet. You see the work and product in the packet. And we did discuss the need to consider a new auditing firm given the performance, but we'll put that on a future agenda for the finance committee. Yes.
No.
Grants committee?
Yeah, we did not meet, we just continue to advance beyond the grant applications we have outstanding, advocating for getting the SRF funds approved.
Great, thank you. Project management?
We did not.
All right, technical subcommittee?
We discussed our meeting on the Wallace 30%.
Okay. The Prop 218, we did meet to review the 3 contracts that were in the board packet. Anything else you want to add on that? Okay. All right, next item on the agenda then, general manager and district engineer comments.
Yeah, so very briefly, I think I made this comment earlier, but I will be traveling, so any calls to the district line or to my email will be delayed. By a day or two. Unlike people are used to me responding within a few hours, it's not going to happen in a few hours for the next little bit here. Beyond that, I think the attachments in the agenda, I don't know that we need to go through them in detail. I think they tell the story pretty well where we're at. We talked about budget, that sort of stuff. And I will say that, I think one of the decisions that you guys will have to consider at some point, and it really will come down to whether or not we need to have a May meeting. It could very well just be meeting approval, minutes approval rather, and then invoices. I don't have anything scheduled for May for your board.
I've been tracking the progress of 30% design, and I was even put at the technical committee meeting. And I just wanted to say, I think that the idea on how to select an assessment district engineer is excellent. You notice there's a thin bench in general in the state, and even within these companies, there's a thin bench. So it's really the personality that you get, and finding the person that seems that they're best suited for our little district. Because there's a large menu, and I just noticed because I'm an assessment engineer. There's a large menu of tasks that can be performed, many that weren't mentioned tonight, such as polling ahead of the vote and things like that. And may not be necessary, but the right assessment engineer would know that for this district. Or if it is necessary, the most cost-effective way to do it. That's just one example. So having an interview with them, and then making sure that they appreciate the background, the nature of the district, and what our specific flavor of our goals are, is perfect. So the interview process will be when I now work for BKF Engineering. We got bought out. So we went, when I hired in this company, we had 39 engineers. Now we have between 750 and 800. It's just, Nick engineering.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your help with the technical committee on the 30% design. All right, director comments. We'll just roll down the line.
Nothing further.
Parks.
I think we're still continuing to make progress. It's just sad that we're coming up against the budgeting wall, but hopefully we'll be able to figure out a way out. I think we've made a lot of progress. It is frightening to think, like Al was saying, people's septic tanks will continue on an individual basis, and then they're tasked with doing an individual solution. And then we do get a district-wide solution, and they'll have to hook up to that. So if you're going to spend $80,000 on your own property, and then all of a sudden now you have something else for $80,000, it's going to be daunting. So hopefully we can get some funding somehow. But it's kind of sad to think that that's looming out there, but we can just keep hoping something's going to come through.
Yeah, I hear all those comments, and in about 12 hours, I will be on my way back to Oklahoma. A older brother and his wife were in a pretty serious traffic accident about a month ago. He got a broken neck and he had 12 broken ribs. And he got a broken pelvis, and he already had a broken neck and surgery and a broken lower back. So they've had church people helping them, and so I'm hitting the road tomorrow, drive back there and be their gopher chauffeur for whatever time it takes to get them back on the road again. I will be doing Zoom attendance, and if you want to join me there, it'll be at 6421 Southwest Airport Road in Paxton, Oklahoma. If you can join me there, I'd be happy. Otherwise, status normal.
I have no comment other than I'll be here.
I just want to bring up the LAFCO meeting. I felt it really well. It was a really good discussion, good information that came out of that. We definitely had gone hard about the funding issue. And I think, there's definitely some reception on both from Joan Hartman's office as well as Bob Nelson's office. We're trying to tee up a meeting with Bob Nelson to discuss this further and figure out a way. Personally, I think this is a great path forward. It's the most cost effective for the county. It's the most cost effective for the residents. I mean, I just personally think this is easy. It's money that's generated in this community, goes right back into this community, supports this community, and improves this community. And if we want Los Olivos to be this kind of crown jewel that we promoted it as, this, like I said, to me is just a no-brainer. So again, I'm not ready to throw in the towel either. I really feel like we have an opportunity to get some funding and make this a manageable project on the construction side for all the property owners in this district. So we did have a good meeting with RGS as well as RCAC. RCAC is going to do a little more work, see what else they can do to come back and help us with some of the tasks that we need down through the Prop 218 process. So again, a lot of good things on the horizon. We're going to be just pushing really hard to try to get something to term, spin it into gold here, people. Anyway, that's it. So, motion to adjourn.
Next, 37.
Second.
Right, all in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for coming out this week.
Thank you, everybody.
Harder and harder.
Who's the second?
I will. You got my Oh, 9 yards.